So how's it going, my Comics and Army? We're here today with the whole creative team of Frank and Home on the Farm. How's it going, gentlemen?
Hey guys, yeah, all good, thank you. I'm well.
All right, so if you want to start introducing yourselves and tell us the part that you had in the book or your role in the book.
Sure, shall I kick off? So my name is Jordan Thomas and I am the writer on the series.
I'm Clark Bint. I'm the artist, inker, colorist.
And I'm John Vallely, and I wrote the score.
Nice. So how all three of you gentlemen meet?
I guess so. I'm the connection between everybody. Clark worked on a comic called Murder Most Mundane for someone that I know from growing up, and I saw Clark's work on there, really loved it. And when I was looking to turn Frank into a comic, he was kind of the first person I thought of to provide the art for that, because he's really amazing. He's amazing at everything, but he was specifically at the time amazing for kind of countrysides and kind of slightly bizarre, slightly scary kind of characters and a lot of atmosphere in work. And John, I know actually, because me and John, despite being English and Irish, we both live in Granada in the south of Spain. So me and John actually met we were both English teachers for a little bit, and that's how we met. And John's amazing at all kinds of music. He's played in bands and also has been studying composing. So yeah, we kind of started with a small little piece, about 3 minutes, on one of the early Kickstarters, and then kind of worked so well that we decided to have John do a score for the entire series.
Nice. Do y'all have Comic-Cons over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, got London. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Fort Bubble, that's the big one kind of over here for comics. There's one called Fort Bubble in Leeds, which I think me and Clark are both going to. Everything working out okay. And that's kind of the one that's really focused on comics. So like this year, Scott Snyder's going, Gail Simone, Raphael Albuquerque, the guys who do American Vampire together. So we can get some pretty big names. We saw some pretty cool people at MCM. Me and Clark both met Frank Quitely, who's one of our favourite artists at MCM London. So yeah, you get some pretty cool things.
Nice. How did y'all get the book to Scout? Did y'all just pitch it, or was Scout your first idea? Well, first choice.
Scout actually approached me directly through the Kickstarter. So little did I know so we kickstarted all of the issues, all 4 issues, and unbeknownst to me, one of the people who bought all 4 issues on the final Kickstarter was James Hayek over at Scout. And within like a day of me sending out the digital editions, he got in touch saying that Scout would be really interested in publishing it. We had a few conversations and decided that Scout would be a really cool home for the book.
Nice. Are you coming out with a trade paperback for all 4?
On the 25th of August, so I think a week Tuesday.
Nice.
At the time that we're recording, 25th of August, the whole 4-issue collection should be available in kind of all good comic stores as well as through Scout's website.
Okay. Are we working on a volume 2?
Well, we don't want to spoil anything, but
right.
Quite definitive. Come the end. So, yeah, we'll probably do all that together, but maybe not in the world of Frank.
All right. Where would we get news about y'all's upcoming books, if there was any?
Well, Clark, you want to let them know what you're up to? You've got some pretty big stuff going on right now.
Yeah, well, so right now I'm the artist on Killtopia, written by Dave Cook. And we just did a Kickstarter. We just launched our Kickstarter for Volume 4. So that's up now. We got funded in 8.5 hours. 7K in 8.5 hours. So pretty chuffed about that. It's at about 10K now. It's it's on for another 27 days. You can just search Killtopia 4 or check out my Twitter and the right Dave Cook's Twitter. And
the Twitter handle, Clark. What's the Twitter handle?
at Clark Bint Art.
Okay, I'll put it all down in the description.
Literally, Clark's kind of underselling it. Killtopia is like the absolute gold standard of Kickstarter comics in the UK. Like the backers it gets, like for an actual like proper small press book, like Clark and Dave, they're not, they're not coming off runs of X-Men or the Avengers and going to Kickstarter. In terms of a proper small press book, it's like the most successful one that comes out of the UK. You can see in the background of Clark's screen,
the number placed
up on the wall.
The cover of Comicchatauthority 3.
Yeah, full on Akira kind of thing.
I was to say it's been made into a TV show now. It's like a I think it's going to be an 8-part miniseries. If I remember right. But yeah, more news on that to come. We've announced that before. So yeah, big things with that. And then also we've got the Frank Home and the Farm hardcover coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've got, as well as the Scout edition coming out in kind of standard trade paperback on Tuesday. So on what date will that be? On the 17th of August, we're releasing a really kind of special edition hardcover collection of the series. It's going to be oversized, so around kind of A4 type size with all the issues together. And that's kind of, for our kind of big fans, like all the people that bought the comic on Kickstarter originally, who want something a bit special. So people that have the option to get the kind of the standard trade paperback or this special hardcover collection we're doing on Kickstarter, which should be pretty cool. We got some cool extras. It's got all the kind of pin-ups by other artists in the back, some really nice process work from Clark. And also Glenn Fabry is doing the variant cover for it, and you'll know him. He did all of the covers to Preacher, all of the covers to Garth Ennis's Hellblazer, so he's a really perfect kind of match for the series, because it's pretty kind of it's quite, everyone's kind of covered in a bit of dirt and all looks like they've been for a really hard time, and that's pretty much what any character Glenn draws looks like pretty much. So yeah, that should be really cool.
All right, and can we back the Kickstarter here in the US? Like, do y'all ship from the UK to the US?
Yeah, totally. It can be a little bit expensive to get the shipping, so I understand, like, that's why it's cool to have the options that US backers or US comic buyers who are interested in the story, they've got the option to get, the $15 version from Scout, which will be great and have the whole story in, or if you are a big kind of collector who loves your hardcovers, it'll probably be for the whole thing about $50, including the postage. And that's as well, in that version, you'll get the link to what John has created for us, which is a scored version of the comic where you can actually sit and watch the comic on your laptop or your iPad or whatever. And because John will talk a bit more about it, but he very specifically looked at every panel and kind of synced the music properly as if it was like a movie score. So it's kind of is like, we call it like Frank the Movie. It's like a way to kind of watch the comic with a really atmospheric score that properly matches the tone of every scene in the comic as you go. So all backers get that as well.
All right. Signings. Can they request you sign the books when they get them, or are y'all going to do any book signings recently?
I guess it's going to be hard to get signings currently with everything that's going on, but definitely for anyone that watches you who's in the UK, like me and Clark will both be at this Thought Bubble convention in November. It would be amazing if things are a bit more chilled next year or the year after, if we could ever get over to an American con. Like I know I'd love to do that, and I'm sure Clark would be very keen. And John's always welcome to join us. So I'm sure I know John loved the trip to America. So.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is there talks about y'all coming to Scout to do any signings?
I guess with how everything's been the last year and a half, obviously stuff like that's been kind of off the table. But yeah, I'm certainly kind of hopeful. I know that Scout do a lot of amazing stuff over in the States. Like they have a really great relationship with the comic stores and the conventions there. So yeah, I think if things kind of were a bit easier for us for traveling and stuff. But it'd definitely be something we'd be interested in doing.
Okay.
I love America.
Mm-hmm.
So John, where can people listen to the scored version of Frank at Home on the Farm?
Well, this is it. The scored version is going to be made available now with the complete edition that's being launched now. The Kickstarter goes live on the 25th, right, Jordan?
Yeah. So there's going to be a link in the back to people to kind of get to it. But John, you post a lot of stuff on if you give them your Instagram and Twitter and stuff, you post a lot of sections.
Yeah, I've posted quite a lot of small clips about 1 minute to give you an idea of how the whole thing works. And I've done my best not to give away any spoilers throughout it. So I've been very specific in my selections. So yeah, in the way the series works, you can get through the first and second series without giving any spoilers. By the time you get to the third and fourth, I basically can't post almost anything because there will be inevitably spoilers there. So yeah, I'm quite excited to get the whole thing launched because I think the third and the fourth have some of the better passages of scores in them.
But it's like people have kind of described the book as like The Shining on a farm. So it's set in the early 1920s, following a soldier who's just returned from World War One, and he finds his family completely missing from the farm, and just the animals are all left there. So he's quite kind of weirded out, and he goes off into the town and meets a lot of unusual characters who don't seem to remember his family at all, which is quite strange because it's like a small little community, so everybody knows everybody. So he's just getting more and more kind of freaked out. He's having these horrible nightmares of like the front line of World War One with animal-faced like German soldiers kind of coming after him and his platoon. And so yeah, there's a lot of mystery, a lot of atmosphere, a lot of tension, some kind of Cronenbergian body horror, some David Lynch style kind of freaky villagers. You can't trust anything. So that's why it worked really well having John do the score, because it is so much like, especially in the early issues as well, it's quite dialogue light. It's a lot of kind of Clark doing the heavy lifting with some really beautiful visual storytelling. And that matches really well with the beautiful score that John put together for the series.
Yeah. I'll just add to that as well. It's quite an interesting experience, putting a score to a comic. And I think that it's a bit of a unique art form in that obviously a comic is still, unlike a movie where you have moving images. And then apart from that, there's no other sound competition. So I suppose in some ways it's like a little bit more similar to the old days where we had silent movies. And this just allowed more opportunity for the music, really. So I think in this way, it was a really cool experiment.
Yeah, I think this is the first time I've ever heard of it.
It's not very common, I don't think.
No, I mean, I think you get different... they make trailers a lot more now for comics kind of when they come out. So you might get a bit of music, but probably it's like stock music. I don't think I've ever seen anyone quite as kind of forensically match a score to a comic, like, because it's not even just scenes. There's like in the nightmare scenes, John put in some like really big drums that are kind of banging, but then they stop and you transition into the next big image and everything comes back in. So it's like properly like really matched to what you're seeing on screen. Mm-hmm.
Little pieces just all moving together.
Yeah, and it's funny actually. John like zooms right in on a lot of stuff. Like Clark's like the only. So when you're often as a writer working with comic artists, you're trying to keep the amount of panels on a page down a bit, because if your artist sees too many like 8 or 9 panel pages, you're likely to start to irritate them a little bit, and you don't want an irritated artist. But Clark is like the only artist I've ever worked with where I'll give him like a 9-panel page and he'd be like, oh, okay, I hope you don't mind, but I've actually added a few more panels to this page. So Clark loves like really tiny detail, and I've like seen stuff from watching John's scored like version, because he zooms right in on the panels and moves around. I'll spot things that Clark like put in the background of images that I never even noticed originally, like when we were going through. Like there's a beautiful one on the cover of issue 2, where there's a puddle reflecting Frank. And Frank's just in his farmyard kind of outfit. But in the puddle, you can see that he's wearing his military uniform. And it's just like really beautiful stuff like that Clark does that you can really also see kind of brought out in this scored version.
That's the cool thing about comics is that you can tell like one action in like many images, or you can tell like one image in many actions. That makes sense, like all visually, because you just got the page, you've got like you play with the page and the panel layouts with that, and you can put in a lot more depth than almost as much as I'd say like literature or something. You can put more detail into that, and you can read it going back and forth. You don't have to read a comic linearly because you're seeing all these images and you're taking in more information at the time. And that's kind of how I've been working as well with that. Working with things like, back with like the kind of the rural horror imagery, putting in things like pareidolia, kind of like little images of things that look like other things, playing with the mystery aspect, things like that you can do. And that's come across in the score really, really well as well.
It's like always check like Clark's shadows. If you're looking through a page and you see Clark's put some shadows in there, always check to see if there's something lurking in there or in reflections or like images like paintings on the wall of a house or something. Like Clark's an artist that when I've worked with, he really gets into the story. Like some artists, it's like they'll probably not even read your full script when they start. They're just very focused on page by page. But Clark really likes to really kind of get under the skin of the story and see what he can kind of add.
All right. So Clark, have you ever put yourself or anyone else in the background of a comic book?
Well, we had some backers for the first Kickstarters we had a tier of, if you back by a certain amount, you can have a little cameo. So I've done that. On issue 1, there's a big page. We've got lots of little like cameos from backers. I've never put myself in a comic that I've done. I've done comics for me. I've got one on my Twitter. It's pinned, and it's like a little kind of underground comics kind of crumb style, American Splendor style kind of little story, like a Mad Magazine thing. And I'm the star of that, but I always just caricature myself. I'm not very good at drawing myself.
There's quite a lot of like the guys from Trapdoor.
Oh yeah.
Kind of cartoon characters that you liked when you were a kid and stuff into the background.
Yeah, I'm always putting stuff for my childhood and things. Actually, in Kiltopia 3, I've got a big scene in this kind of virtual reality area, and I've drawn a couple of things in there, like the Trapdoor, which is a TV show I used to watch as a kid, little claymation, and little characters like that. I don't know why there's images that are stuck in my head, and I just want to put them out there onto people's projects.
All right. Well, I appreciate you gentlemen coming to talk to me. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
I guess just to kind of reaffirm that, so the collection from Scout is out on the 25th. So for all of your American audience, that's a really great way to get hold of the collection. And also I'm thinking that what I'm going to do is, because I really want as many people as possible to see this scored version, if you're someone who's bought the Scout collection in the shops, if you just send me like a receipt, a photo of the receipt or a photo of like you with the collection, then I'm going to send people the link to be able to go and watch the whole scored version as well. So you just have to completely sign that off with Scout. But yeah, I don't want people in the US who maybe don't want to get completely taken by postage, because I know that the postage costs can be, because I buy a lot of stuff on Kickstarter, they can be a bit crazy. So anyone who grabs it in the shops in the US, just send me proof that you did, and we'll get a link over to you so that you can check out this amazing kind of movie scored version.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Oh, thank you. Thanks a lot. A lot of fun.
Thank you. Have a good one.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comic Chat Authority? Oh, come on. Subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.